They feel sad and depressed.
More leadership on the part of the city.
With parents coming in the morning before kids would come to the park and do a sweep of the park and see if there's any needles that they needed to pick up before any kids got here.
How is that okay? How do we get to a place where we think that's normal?
Oh my goodness. Seattle residents are outraged. Did you hear what that woman said? It's been a year of remote learning. Some public school students returning to classes now have homeless encampments right next to their buildings. And Seattle's KTTH radio talk show host Jason Rantz obtained school district emails. That's helpful. Here's what they reveal. School board members demanded Seattle not sweep homeless encampments from schools. Rantz took pictures of trash and syringes on the ground around the camps, highlighting the dangerous conditions. Parents have been calling on the school district for months to have the tents removed from their locations near an elementary school and a middle school, but so far, nothing has been done. The city is refusing to get involved, saying it's not their jurisdiction. Joining me now, Jason Rantz. Jason, thanks for being on the program. So, if it's not the city's jurisdiction, whose is it?
Well, it's supposedly up to the Seattle Public School District, and that's part of the problem. As you mentioned, the school board is working both behind the scenes and now publicly saying we do not support any removal of any of the encampments, whether they're on campus or adjacent to campus. I found some of these emails that were sent to me between board president Chandra Hampson and director Zachary DeWolf, flatly saying, look, we'd like some assistance in dealing with this, but we don't want you to remove any of the encampments. A public statement by both of them came out calling them decidedly inhumane. They say we demand sweeps never be performed on school grounds, and they put it in caps, never. So obviously they're serious about it. The problem is you've got a bunch of kids right now who are returning into the classroom, and these are special education kids. Coming up in the next less than 2 weeks, you have the remainder of the school students coming in on sort of a temporary remote learning hybrid. So a lot more kids are coming in. I went to Meany Middle School on Capitol Hill. This is really close to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. And I thought I was being careful. I stepped on a syringe. Now, luckily, there wasn't a needle attached to it. But imagine if a kid is going there. There was a guy who was wandering around sort of menacingly with a sort of like a metal pole that you might find attached to a piece of furniture. He was dragging it on the ground. He was banging it into his hand. I mean, this is not a safe environment for kids.
Yeah, you know, and we know that these groups of people who get to this place in their lives, they're challenged in a whole host of different ways, financially, emotionally. We don't know what that level of desperation brings, but when you find syringes and those things, we can make some pretty good assumptions about their behavior and what their actions are. And so is that what you want to mix in with children? So why don't they want to touch these camps? Would they move them someplace else? What is it? What's driving it?
Yeah, so what's driving it is a radical ideology. These are folks who are put in positions of power who will only say yes when there is subsidized housing, apartment complexes, homes that they can put folks into. Simply putting people into shelters or even hotel rooms, which the city is doing, is not good enough for these radicals. And that, of course, poses a significant problem. We have a situation right now, a study was recently done by the University of Washington that said a 50% increase in tents across the city. It's gotten worse in the last year. For those of us who live here, it's hard to imagine that it's gotten so bad because it was already awful to begin with. The problem here is, to your point, you don't necessarily know who's in these tents. These are not adults who are getting impacted here, although obviously staff and parents, but you've got kids walking through these encampments. What if there is a child molester in one of them? You simply don't know. And I don't say that to demonize all homeless people, but folks on the left here want to pretend that everyone who's homeless is just like you and me. They're your neighbors who fell on hard times. That's certainly true. There's a lot of those folks, but that's not all of them. And we have to be more realistic. Our kids' safety is on the line. They just want to go back to school and hang out with their kids. And now on the way to math class, they're jumping over syringes and tents.
Yeah. You know, and in a delicate manner, what you're saying is that the tent population there is a microcosm of greater society, and you really don't know who is among them. But the safety issue of the children, though, from what they step on, what they're exposed to atmospherically, just walking around, is then put upon by who they may be running into, and that is very complicated. Thank you for being the person to go in there and show us what's happening. Not acceptable by any means. Jason Rantz, thank you.
Thanks, Harris.